her birthday in Indianapolis, and I got the call that I was inducted into the White Castle Hall of Fame. And the excitement and the joy, after I got on the phone with Jamie, I was like, I finally did it! I am somebody! But my story's sort of like everybody else. I grew up on White Castle in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was probably born with White Castle in my veins because on my parents' wedding night, she was pregnant with me. My grandmother was in the hospital, and at that time, you couldn't get out of the hospital until you paid your bill. So my dad took all of their money that they had saved, and he had to get his mother out of the hospital. So the night of their wedding, they spent their wedding night at White Castle having dinner. And that's how it started with me. Growing up in Indiana, I frequented so many White Castles that were around the town. My fondest memory of White Castle, why I love White Castle so much, was not just the fact that the burgers tasted so well, but it was the fact that you could go in. At the time, we had the stores that they had the seats at the counter. And you could sit down there and you could watch the guys cook the food. And to me, that was amazing because I would sit there and my dad and them would take me there and I'd watch them cook that food. And it just did something for me. So fast forward, as a teenager, well, not a teenager, I was 12 years old, and my parents let me do whatever I wanted to do. They were, my family worked, so we were just a stay-at-home kid. So their nearest White Castle was 2.5 miles, and I take my allowance and I walk to the White Castle. It's on the corner of LaSalle and Washington Street in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's still there today. Unfortunately for me, in 1985, our family decided to move to Florida.
Oh.
Yeah, and I had family in Indiana, but I never missed them. The only thing that I missed was White Castle, and that is true. Ask all of my family. And like so many others that shared this story, whenever we would go home, they knew the first place they had to take me was to White Castle. So we'd come in to fly into Indianapolis Airport, and they'd take me to the nearest White Castle on Washington Street, and I'd go there and have White Castle. And then as they were celebrating family dinners and holidays, what was my family holiday dinner? It was White Castle. I did not enjoy Thanksgiving dinners with family. It was White Castle. I didn't enjoy Christmas dinners. It was White Castle. They brought that to me because they knew that that's what I loved. So I started to, it wasn't a social media at the time. I started writing White Castle saying, okay, I really want to know how we can get a White Castle in Florida. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't franchise. That's what I always heard. I was like, crap, you know? So then email. Yes, I'm 53 years old, but an email came around. And I'm like, White Castle, an email address. So I started emailing White Castle. That didn't work. So it was a December of 2010, and I'm sitting around and I'm like, I've got to do something. I have to do something. White Castle has to know that we've got fans and great people in Florida. So I started a Facebook page in December of 2010. And that Facebook page was called Bring White Castle to Florida. And my first post was December 20th of 2010. And I let that page go, and I would post stuff whenever we'd go to Indiana. I encouraged people to post their pictures, and it kept running and running and running, and I was gaining traction. I'd see 1,000 people, and I'd say, yeah, we got 1,000. And then it went to 2,000, and then 4,000, and then 5,000. And it kept growing. And all the time I'm being a stalker, because I didn't just post on there, I tagged White Castle. I tagged Lisa in Twitter posts and White Castle, everything. I wanted them to say, look at us! Look what Florida's doing! See us! Hear our roar! And boy, I felt kind of silly when nothing happened. And we hit 10,000, we got really close to 10,000 people. And I received a phone call or an email. I can't remember what it was. I sent an email. And it said, we would like to invite you to a special occasion. And I'm like, huh? What is this? I got invited to the groundbreaking ceremony of White Castle of Orlando. And I teared up, and I cried, and I still tear up over the fact that I have a White Castle. But the coolest thing of all, because I don't really it's kind of hard to believe, but I'm kind of introverted, and I don't like people to recognize me for things. I like other people to get credit. My Facebook page I dedicated to my daughters because they're the social media people that got me started in this. I ran the page. But we sat down and we had all these dignitaries from Orlando and all the city, around at this groundbreaking thing. And before the ceremony started, they started talking, and Jamie, I'm sitting out there in the chairs, and Jamie says, we like to think one person, and without this person, I'm paraphrasing, this would not be possible. And I'd like to recognize Harry Blackledge. And I'm like, I'm floored, because you've got the mayor of Orange County, you've got all these dignitaries, and Jamie recognizes me about bringing White Castle to Florida. And it was an honor for me to do that. But what was even more of an honor was I was invited to the grand opening. And at that grand opening, they allowed me to cut the ribbon.
Wow.
With the golden scissors. Let me tell you something that struck me even more and has touched my heart, and it's a story that I share with everyone that I talk to about White Castle, and it's the family. Guys, White Castle at Orlando was probably the most outrageous thing that you could have ever imagined. We had thousands upon thousands of people coming there. It shut the streets down. And I watched this family who run this enterprise, huge enterprise that we're all part of, working, not sitting back taking credit for look at what we did. They are working, they're manning the grill, they're delivering food to people. And that showed me the heart and compassion that they have for their people and for the customers of their restaurant. And that speaks volumes to me. That speaks volumes to me. And as much as we love White Castle, I love seeing that. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for White Castle of Orlando. Now, my Facebook post has started at one page. I now have 14 for different areas of the state of Florida. So, area on Facebook so that White Castle can see how many more Cravers want White Castle in that area. And I am honored and I am privileged to say that I have done it. There are a few things in my life that I'm proud of. It's marrying my wife. It's my daughters, and it's bringing White Castle to my community.